Welcome back to Artists, Icons, and Entrepreneurs. I'm Lulu Benavidez, and I'm sitting here with my bubbly. And of course, I drink. I don't know if you can see this. This is what do you call it? It doesn't have any sulfates in. So, anyway, here's to you.
And here's to you, my co-host Lulu Benavidez from Lulu the Salon in Galveston, Texas. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you and to our guests.
Well, here we are, Lulu. At the beginning, do you believe this? He's 6. Honestly,
Oh my God.
I didn't think I'd live this long.
I didn't expect so either. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Time has really gone by, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So this is our second part of a holiday series. And we're going to talk about fresh ideas, our big dreams, and how we're going to level up our podcast for the coming year, 2026.
Yes. You know, it's I think it's like a lot of things in life. Looking at 2026 is exciting, and I think the trick is to every day have a sense of purpose when you get out of bed. Find one thing that day that you want to accomplish, one thing to be grateful for, and one thing that you need to challenge yourself to do. I mean, that's a good little routine. But I also think change can be a little scary.
Oh, yeah.
I just think back, Lulu, 10 years ago, just where computers were, where social media was, where businesses were. I mean, it was 10 years before COVID.
Correct.
Shopping online, all the things that have affected our lives. And boy, you just wonder what changes are coming our way
Right.
in the next 10 years.
Which brings me to, what does the new year mean to us as individuals? You talked about the 3 things that we should do this next year. You getting out of bed, all those things. But, I think the older we get, the more we get settled in our ways. But it takes me back to our last person that we interviewed. He said, unless you change you, because individuals do not change. We don't change. We change how we react to what's given to us or what we're talking about. People do not change.
Right.
So I think this coming year is something that I think we're going to have to step back and see what's out there for the individual and know that, we can buy things now that we couldn't buy 20, 30 years ago because we saved our money and we did certain things. And now we're at a place where we can do that. And because right now people don't see us the way we think they should see us, that we have to step back and know that they're not going to change, nor are we going to change, but we have to change in order to get them to receive us. Right. Does that make sense?
Right. But, I know that nobody is going to change me. But over the course of my lifetime, I always say I'm a good Marine because the airborne background, Marine, we adapt, we improvise, we overcome. And so in every situation in life, you have to decide. Now, I see some people that are our age who are just like, I have to learn how to do that all the computer. Now, Lulu, you're 10,000 steps ahead of me. But there are also people 10,000 steps behind me because they won't accept change. Yeah. I think you have to recognize that things are changing, decide how the good and the bad of those changes, and then about how you're going to react to that. I have a friend who's, well, I'm not just going to learn how to do that. And I said, well, you're going to have to, because pretty soon you won't be able to get a prescription or to make a deposit
Uh-huh.
or anything. So at some point, you're going to either have to pay somebody to do it for you, or have your rely on your grandchildren to do it for you, or you're going to have to learn how to do this, you know. So we make conscious decisions along the way. I'd like to think, I was kind of impressed um, that Australia has decided
Mhm.
that they're restricting social media for youth under 16.
Mhm.
There are pros and cons about that, but the one thing that we had talked about another time, Lulu, is that growing up when I grew up, 90% of my faith, my family, my knowledge of our country,
Mhm.
heritage, our community, business, I learned that at our kitchen table because
Mhm.
that was our social media. We
Correct.
got to dinner for every meal, and everybody discussed what was happening, and so much of that has disappeared. And one thing I would just really like to see our country come back to, and I think Charlie Kirk talked about this way back, a congressman from Connecticut. I can't think of his name. He wrote a book called The Holy Sabbath, I think was the name. But this idea of at Sundays, we set that time aside. Shut off your cell phone, don't overschedule things on Sunday, and make that connecting with family a real part of what Sundays are about. I think it's really important to have a yin and a yang in your life.
Mhm.
And when we've got all this technology and everything else happening, I think it's really important. And, a lot of people are not blessed with a big family, but
Mhm.
all have a circle that becomes family. So maybe
Correct.
that's a day you have your friends over for dinner, or you invite some of your neighbors in, or whatever. But it's really important, I think, that we work really hard on building human relationships again.
That's so true, Sue, 'cause, buil building human relationships, I love that. It takes me back where my son-in-law during Christmas time, all the grandkids are most of them are adults, and they're sitting there with their phones. All, 6 of
Yeah.
them, except for the little one, and they're like this
Yeah.
with their phones the
Mhm.
whole time. So one of my son-in-laws comes in and he says, "Can we have fellowship?
I
Can
love
you?"
that.
I think that's what we're missing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think technology is good to us. And,
Mhm.
if we learn it, it can benefit us and it's how we receive it.
Oh,
But also that human connection is so, so
yeah.
important.
Yeah. And we get dupes, Lulu. And
Mhm.
this is a good example how, do as I say, not as I do. I remember going back several years ago, and my grandchildren were in middle school and high school, and we'd be together, and they'd all be on their phones. And sometimes they'd be texting each other
Is
when
that
they were in the
right?
same room. And I would just say, this is crazy. This is crazy. Well, now I go to my daughter's house and my son-in-law's, and we're all pooped, and we turn on TV, and there we are with our phones looking at our whatever. My fiance and I, we put in turn something on TV, and we look over both, and then all of a sudden I see something I think he'll like. So I send it to me, here's one, oh, and I'm thinking, oh my God, it turned into the grand. Yeah, because as things become more socially acceptable, even though you think it's not going to influence you, it influences everybody sooner or
Mhm.
later. So, and maybe there's a lot to be said of just being aware that
Mhm.
we live in an age of technology. You're not gonna stop it, you're not
Right.
gonna change it, and Lulu, you're the worst because I thought you dissed me for another friend, and then I found out, no, it's just what you named your, AI. That's not Lulu, so I see you.
So you still need the human connection, right?
Yes, yes, I need my girl strips, and
Yeah.
I need that, and, you know what I love about the holidays, Lulu? Is there really anything better than a good hug from somebody you haven't seen in a while? It's
Correct.
just something very healing.
Hmm.
When you see somebody you haven't seen in a while, and you just have a good hug.
Right.
Yeah.
So is that your New Year's resolution? Do you make New Year's resolutions?
Oh God, Lou, I do every year. I mean, I give it a lot of thought. I write them down because if you don't write them down, it's not real. I've written down I'm going to lose 20 pounds every year for the last 50 years. And
Uh-huh.
even if I do lose it, somehow I manage to gain it back by the end of the next year. So that one doesn't go very far. I do make I'm so used to doing business goals,
Hmm.
I'm lucky I get out of the shower without a business plan,
Yeah.
really. But I do try to work on myself personally. Maybe it'll be some books that I want to read. Maybe I think it's how I'm going to structure my prayer time throughout the year. One of the things that I did last year, and I won't say that 100% I was good at this, but I think it's really good of every week just stop and think about, is there an old friend, somebody I know, somebody I haven't been in touch with that I would just try and reach out and say, hey, thinking about you today, hope you're doing good. If you have some time, you want to chat, call, or, because um if you want to have a friend, be a friend.
Hmm.
If you want to have family, be family. If you want to maintain relationships, you can't wait. Some people sit in their house and say, I'm so lonely, nobody cares about me. Well, yeah, but what did you do about that?
Hmm.
So everybody has their ups and downs, but I do think that human connection is
Yeah.
really important. And maybe because we're getting older, Lulu, but how many times in the last year have you heard about somebody who passed
Hmm.
and you thought, gosh, when's the last time I talked to them? When's the last time I saw them?
I know.
If
Yeah.
I'd only known that and so I was horrible at this, horrible when I was younger. But the older I get, the more I realize that's something, and I'm going to try and do more of it.
Yeah. And I think the new year is a time to have those reflections
Mhm,
because it's so important. And it's so true that the older we get, the more we think about people,
mhm.
but we sometimes don't react.
Right.
We don't call them. I had a friend of mine, and you know him, Bob Meone.
Yeah, sure, I know Bob.
He calls me out of the blue and says, I haven't talked to you, and leaves a message on my phone. I haven't talked to you in a long time. Thought I'd
Yeah,
call you.
yeah,
Now
nice.
that was sweet. It took me, 2 weeks. Finally called him back. Do you
Yeah.
know that his wife had passed away?
No, no.
So that goes to show you that you never know.
Right.
So if you just pick up the phone and
Mhm.
call somebody, and make it a point that is so important, not
Right,
only to them, but also to you as an
right.
individual.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it just, it blew me away, which takes me back to one of our episodes. This one guy, an artist, said that you should know, you should not forget the older people. You
Yeah.
should not forget anybody. Go
Mm,
visit them. Go say hi to them
mhm,
because once they're gone and
mhm.
their stories are
Their
gone.
stories are gone. Yeah.
And that's what I love about this podcast that we have created, you and I, is that we listen to everybody's story. And we learn so much from them. And from Jesse Rodriguez, he's, and I see him all, I saw him last night, but I see him all the time on Facebook or Instagram. And he talks about his grandmother that she would shout out this word in Spanish and he did not know what it meant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then later, when she passed away, he did some research and he found out she was shouting out where she came from.
Yeah.
So things like that,
Yeah.
just stories, and then you hear stories, he did a painting of her and she had green eyes. He has green eyes. And on his paintings has a small emblem of green.
Yeah.
You can't see it unless he points it out. But this goes to show you all those stories that we've heard in our podcast of individuals.
Yeah.
That human connection that we have with each one has been wonderful.
Yeah. It's totally different, but it made me think of him. We had David Kingston on the show.
Yeah.
And, he talked a lot about balance. Balance in our lives, balance in our approach to life. And it was at a time when I had so much crazy stuff going on. And every once in a while, I think about that podcast and just some of the things that he shared. And it really helped me think about, I don't like the word grounding, stepping back and sort of, okay, now let's really, what are the priorities here? And we've been so blessed. I always feel bad when we start talking about guests because there's not a guest that I didn't walk away and feel like I learned something from. Everybody wants to know how to be successful, particularly young people. How do I make more money? How do I get that car? How do I do that? And I get to go to the trip. And everybody's the wants. Everybody wants. But to find people or needs, but it's really important as human people that you find people who help you really determine what is right for you. Because at the end of the day, if you don't feel good about the type of person you've become, not what you have, but what you've become, you usually wind up being a pretty miserable person.
Correct. Which takes me to, every January, I think the third week or the second week of January, I go to New Orleans called Serious Business. And it's through Neil Corporation, and they're a hair, in the beauty industry, and they've been in the beauty industry over 50 years, if not longer. But it's not a technical show.
Right.
It's a self-improvement show. So they have wellness people and they have different authors, and it's incredible. So it's a way to kick off your new year on that note. So Jay Shetty was there when he first started. Robin Sharman.
Yeah.
Mel Roberts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deepak Chopra was way back. So these are people now you can't even get them because it costs so much. But they got to start in Serious Business. So it's January I love because it's a way of kicking off a self-improvement on myself.
Yeah.
What do I need to do? What books I need to read? What I need to do for myself? What do I need to do in order to maintain my physical fitness so I can be well enough to run with my grandkids or great-grandkids or whatever.
Get out of bed again tomorrow,
Yeah, you're a little bit, as you get older, you get slower. But you still have to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
You still have to take care of yourself.
Yeah. Well, and just on those notes, I mean, when we always do at the end of our segments, we do that, Fast Five, where we ask questions. I always like to ask people, what are you reading? Because I think that's so telling, because sometimes people are reading, and everybody knows the top 10 and everybody knows this, but every once in a while somebody will mention something and you go, "Oh, I've never, I didn't hear that," and the other thing is, it just made me think of, and I don't know why in my mind, but when we had Penny Burns on,
Mhm.
Craig Miller reached out, who does his podcast and has, been everything in the beauty business. And he was so great about helping us promote. And he just recently was appointed general manager for Inner Coiffures. So I just want to, hey, congratulations. We love to see everybody get ahead. And
Yeah.
and see, that's another good example. When you help other people, good things automatically come your way. It's
Yeah.
good karma. And he's done a lot of really good things in the beauty industry. So hats off to you.
God. So what are we going to do this new coming year?
Well, we're going to be very strategic.
Okay.
Well, we didn't really, we had an idea because we felt like there was a room for a podcast that really linked artists, icons, and entrepreneurs and
Mhm.
successful people and their history, their road, the good things and the bad. But I think also this year, we want to hear from people what they would like to hear from us and
Mhm.
incorporate a really good mix of people on the show. And to be I think when we first started, I think we were both very uncomfortable sort of being in front
Mm.
and being out there. And I think we've both kind of are feeling more free to be ourselves, which helps the show be a little bit more relaxed
Mhm.
and fun. So, those kind of things. And I know you, Lulu, you're gonna keep pushing the tech button. You're gonna know how to know every widget and gadget.
Yeah, I do so much better behind the scenes. I could do emails and you're the talker.
What do you think about
Yeah.
that?
But, this new coming year, we're going to make some changes only for the better. So we want our viewers and listeners to DM us and tell us, who they like to see, what they like to hear. We have an idea of both, what we want to do for the coming year. And then we want to stay close to our mission statement and the title, Artists, Icons, and Entrepreneurs, not just beauty industry people talking about technical, but I think, having a more human connection, like you said,
Yes.
Sue. I
Yeah.
think that's so important. So please, give us a shout out if you know what you want to see and hear. And we'd love to hear we'd love to hear your conversation, what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's an old marketing adage that says, if you want to make good dog food, make sure the dogs want it. And, that's kind of like where we are. You never know what goes into the sausage making. You only know for but for me, every episode is a chance to grow. And, that's another thing that I would share with people, young or old. Don't be afraid to fail. Try something different. It may not wind up being exactly what you think, but it's not always about arriving at a place. It's about the journey. And the journey with artists, icons, and entrepreneurs has been a good one for me. I certainly have enjoyed it.
So have I. So we want to thank all our viewers and guests and everybody involved. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast and listening to us. Keep listening, keep subscribing, keep commenting on us, because it will help.
And subscribing is so important. We have so many people who send emails and say, "Oh, listen to the podcast," or people who will like the podcast or whatever. But for the algorithms to work correctly, the most important thing is clicking that sponsorship button. It doesn't cost a thing. It's no commitment on your part, but it lets people know that you are, in fact, seriously enjoyed the show and that you will more than likely be watching it or listening to it again. So please, please subscribe.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone that's listening and everyone that's been a guest.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Be well,
See you.
Lulu.
We'll see you next year.
Yeah, same here.